Hi there, ho there, ho there. Yes, hi there. This is Clifford Bates, and welcome once again to reading Machiavelli's Discourses. We're still in Book 1. We're slowly going through it, and today we're looking at Chapter 9. Chapter 9 here, as it says, the question is that it is necessary to be alone if one wishes to order a republic anew, or to reform it altogether outside its ancient orders. In other words, again, is it necessary to be alone if one wishes to order a republic anew, or to reform it altogether outside its ancient orders? Now the question is, how do you reform, or in other words, you're going to order or create new structures of the republic. In other words, you're going to make changes, or you're going to make you're going to reframe it. Okay, is it going to be simply just a question? Is it to be alone? That's an interesting question to be. So let's look at paragraph 1. It will perhaps appear to someone that have run too far into Roman history, without having made any mention of the orderings of that republic, or of the orders that concern religions or in the military. So, we've gotten all this deep, and we haven't discussed any of these things. The orders of the republic, or the orders concerning religion. So, not wishing to hold longer in suspense the minds of those who wish to understand some things regarding this part, I say that many will perhaps judge it a bad example that a founder of a civic way of life, as was Romulus, should first have killed his brother, right? Then consented to the death of Titus Talus the Sabine, choosing by him as partner in his kingdom, judging because that its citizens might, with the authority of their prince, though through ambition and desire to command, be able to offend those who might be opposed to their authority. So in other words, the example. In other words, it's going to be hard, given what Romulus did, given the example of Romulus, how Romulus founded Rome. It's hard to envision that this is going to be someone who makes a free way of life. He murders his brother. He basically consents to the death of the Titus Sabine, who is his king, a partner in the kingdom, right? Because his argument was that it could be. That opinion would be true. He continues here now. This is at that point. That opinion would be true if one did not consider what end had introduced him to commit such a homicide. In other words, what is the end? Why did he commit the homicide? This would be true if we didn't understand the end. This should be second paragraph. This should be taken as a general rule, that it never or rarely happens that that two there is not the right thing. I think that's a text error. That any republic or any republic or kingdom is ordered well from the beginning, or reformed altogether anew outside its old orders, unless it is ordered by one individual. In other words, you cannot do these two things. You cannot, in other words, it cannot be well ordered from the beginnings, or reformed together anew. It cannot be reformed unless if it is not done by a single person. Indeed, it is necessary that one alone give the mode, and that any such ordering depends on his mind. So therefore, the idea of the founder. This is a discussion of the legislator, the founder, and the idea that if you're going to establish a city, in other words, wishes to order anew a city, or to reform it outside its orders, it has to be done by a single person. It can't be just done, in other words, this is. So it depends on his mind, it says. Indeed, it is necessary that the one alone give the mode, and that any such ordering depends on his mind or intellect or ability or his ability so a prudent orderer of a republic who has the intent to wish to help not himself but the common good, not for his own succession but for the common fatherland, should contrive to have authority alone. Nor will a wise understanding ever reprove anyone for any extraordinary action that he uses to order a kingdom or to constitute a republic. Now, let's do 3. This is talent, ingenio. Have a wise talent, ingenuity or something. In other words, this is interesting. He says, a prudent order would have to, who has the intent not to help himself, but the collective good, the good of the city, right? Not for his own succession, but for the common, for the country, okay? Should contrive to have the authority, nor will a wise undertaking ever reprove of that, right? Or anyone for extraordinary actions that he uses to order a kingdom or constitute a republic. It is very suitable that when the deed accuses him, the effect accuses him. And when the effect is good, as was that of Romulus, it will always excuse the deed. For he who is violent to spoil, not he who is violent to mend, should be approved. In other words, okay, why is the question here is, what is the violence for? If the violence is done to mend or to improve, you should not be reproved. But if the violence is done to spoil or to abuse or to harm, then you should be reproved, right? So therefore, the question, the effect. In other words, if you're going to accuse the deed, right, we should pay attention to the effect. He says, the suitable that the deed accuses him, the effect accuses him. And when the effect is good, it will excuse the deed, okay? So again, this is but this is consequentialism. It's not the question of the good in itself, but this is arguing that the consequence, the effect of the consequence, will determine the morality of the act. No, he's not saying it's. In other words, he's not explicitly saying that. He's arguing it's the morality. He's going to argue that it was a bad thing. It was just that it produced benefit. Okay, it produced the benefit. So we're not necessarily going to blame him. Now this is why the problem of praising vice. In other words, some vices that produce good benefits should be praised, or at least not blamed, right? He said in The Prince. Again, this is that famous chapter in The Prince who talks about the question of that, right? He should indeed be so prudent and so virtuous that he does not leave the authority he took as an inheritance to another. So therefore, in other words, he's not going. This is not going to be the power. The power he took is not going to be inherited by his successor. For since men are more prone to evil than to good, his successor could use ambitiously that which has been used virtuously by him. You can't be sure that the future people are going to do it well. In other words, it has to be done as an extraordinary thing. It can't be a regular power in this sense. It can't be assumed that the future people are going to be, the successors will use it virtuously. Besides this, and why does he say this? Because more, again, this is the general principle, men are more prone to evil than good. Beside this, if one individual is capable of ordering, the thing itself is ordered to last not if it remains on the shoulders of one individual, but rather if it remains in the care of many, and its maintenance stays with many. So in other words, okay, it's for the purposes of perpetuation. He makes a very interesting point. He says that, okay, it may be capable that an individual is capable of ordering something. A thing is ordered itself is ordered to last long, not if it remains on the shoulder of one individual. In other words, if the thing that's going to be remaining on one person, then it probably won't last long. But if you're going to maintain, if it's going to be maintained by many, then the system will maintain. Why? Because it's going to be, in other words, if it's many, then it's going to be hard that one bad apple is going to really make the whole thing change in that sense, right? And it's going to be hard to get anything done or do anything in that sense. So therefore, the shoulders of one individual, but rather many, in the care of many, and its maintenance stays with many. So besides this, if the individual, in other words, the famous line, so for as many are not capable of ordering a thing because they do not know it's good. In other words, they don't necessarily, the many can't produce a good. They can't make an order because they don't necessarily know how to make a good. Now, the question is, well, wait a minute, doesn't this raise an eyebrow about the American experience at Philadelphia? Right? This does challenge Machiavelli in that sense, right? The idea we argued the founding fathers not one but many, right? But the question then becomes: is it ordering something new, or is it a radical refounding, or is it just a mild correction in that sense, or was it a preservation in that sense, right? He goes, for many are not capable of ordering a thing because they do not know it's good, which is because of the diverse opinion among them. So when they have come to know it, they do not agree to abandon it. So in other words, it's going to be difficult for them to know it, but once they know it, it's going to be hard for them to abandon it, right? That Romulus was of those that he deserves excuse in the death of his brothers and of his partner, and that when he did, and that what he did was for the common good, and not for his own ambition. It is demonstrated by his having at once ordered a senate with which he took counsel, and by whose opinion he decided. Right? This is again tied to 4, right? Yeah, Livy 8, right? He who considers well the authority of Romulus, reserved for himself, will see that none other was reserved except for that of commanding the armies, when war was decided on, and that of convoking the Senate. That may be seen later when Rome becomes free through the expulsion of the Tarquins. Then no ancient order was innovated by the Romans, except that in place of a perpetual king, there were 2 annual councils. This testifies that all the first orders of that city were more comfortable to a civic and free way of life than that to an absolute and tyrannical one. So in other words, he makes the case, Machiavelli makes the case that even the ordering that Romulus makes was one suitable not to a tyrannical, absolute tyrannical rule, but for a free and a civil and free way of life. Let's continue. One could easily give infinite examples to sustain the things written above, such as Moses, Lycurgus, Solon, and the other founders of kingdoms and republics who were able to form laws for the common good, because they had one authority attributed to them. But I wish to admit them as a thing known. In other words, again, this leads us to the famous chapter in The Prince about the founders, right? The great founders. But he's not going. You can give infinite. He says, I can give you infinite examples, but I'm not going to, because this is just something that is known. I shall bring up only one of them that is not so celebrated, but as to be considered by those who desire to be orderers of good laws. Now, in other words, this is interesting. In The Prince, he mentions the same guys, Moses. Remember, it's different. What is it? It's there's some changes. What is the change? It's here. It's as Moses, Lycurgus, Solon, right? The famous three. The other one is slightly different. These are Cyrus, Moses, Theseus, Cyrus, and Romulus. Yeah, Romulus. Where's that line in The Prince? Yeah, chapter 6 of The Prince. Moses, Cyrus, Romulus, Theseus, and the like. And the extra person he brings in there is a hero, right, at the end, example of hero. The example of hero, right? Hero. Here, Xenophon's hero, right? The hero of Syracuse. Now, here we don't get Romulus mentioned here. Romulus was mentioned earlier, but Moses, Lycurgus is mentioned in Solon of Athens and Sparta, right? So then he talks, I should not order them, but he says what? He's going to mention somebody, but when Agis, king of Sparta, desired to return to the Spartans to the limits within which the laws of Lycurgus had enclosed them, it appeared to him that because it had in some part deviated, his city had lost much of its ancient virtue, and as a consequence, its strength and empire. He was killed. He was killed in his first beginnings by the Spartan ephor, as a man who wished to seize a tyranny. Right. This is Agis wanted to do this. He wanted to act on it. He wanted to reform things back to the way that, but the ephors, Spartan ephors, as a man, by the Spartan ephors, as a man who wished to seize tyranny. They killed him at the beginning. When Cleomedes succeeded into the kingdom, the same desire arose in him because of the records and writings he had found in Agis, in which his mind and intentions were seen. But he knew that he could not do this good for his fatherland unless he alone were in authority, since it appeared to him that because of the ambition of men, he could not do something useful to useful to the many against the wishes of the few. He took a convenient opportunity. He had all the ephors. And anyone else who might be able to stand against him killed, and then renewed altogether the laws of Lycurgus. Of course, he needed to kill them first. In other words, Aegeus didn't kill them, but they killed Aegeus. So Aegeus Cleomedes decided that, happened. He saw the thing. This needs to be done. Restore the laws of Lycurgus back to restore. So he needed to have all the power. He needed to eliminate and killed all the senators and those of the F4s and those who were going to oppose him. Anyone else who might be able to stand against him, killed, and renewed altogether the laws of this. That decision was apt for the making Sparta rise again, and for giving to Cleomenes the reputation that Lycurgus had. And if it had not been for the power of the Macedonians and the weakness of the other Greek republics, in other words, if it had not been for the power of the Macedonians were powerful like a Russian, right? And the weakness of the other Greek republics. For after such an order, when he was assaulted by the Macedonians, he found himself alone and inferior in strength, and had no one with whom he could seek refuge. He was conquered, and his plan, however, just and praiseworthy, thus remained imperfect. In other words, again, this is from Plutarch's Cleomenes. That there was a great idea. He was like Lycurgus, but the problem was the time was wrong. In other words, the other Greek cities were weak. He didn't have allies to stand, and the Macedonians were too powerful. And the Macedonians would see him as a threat, and therefore, okay, you're going to go after him, right? So it was a good plan, just and praiseworthy, but it's imperfect because it didn't address the threat of the Macedonians, and didn't have means to survive the threat, you could say, right? And this chapter ends on this. Thus, having considered all these things, I conclude that to order a republic, it is necessary to be alone. And for the death of Romulus and Titus Tatus, Romulus deserves excuse, not blame. So therefore, that's the difference between what is the difference between this? There was no external threats. The time when Romulus does this, there's no external threats. And when he wanted to restore, there wasn't. It was. In other words, Cleomenes' example. He ends up praising again Romulus, and explaining that okay, we can forgive that Romulus deserves excuse, not blame. Okay, and because he wanted to order a republic, right? It's necessary to be alone. You're going to have to act alone in that sense. So we'll stop here. This is where the text ends and the chapter ends. If you have any comments, please put them below, and I will respond to them when I see them. If you like it, hit the like button. Hit the like button. It helps the algorithm. Share it far and wide. Share it in your social media. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe. Encourage others to come and check out the channel and subscribe. You can check out the other Machiavelli sections and Machiavelli's princes we've dealt with, and the other texts of ancient and modern. If you didn't like it, you can say no, you can thumb down it, but you can please say why in the comments so people can benefit from and learn something from it. What else? You want to follow me on social media, the social media links or the URLs are below. If you want to know more about me as a scholar and a researcher, check out my research and things like that. You can check the academic social media links below the social media links. And if you want to help me to do what I do here, you can do so through by contributing through Patreon or Subscribestar, or through by buying one of my books, either through your local bookstore or through an online distributor like Barnes & Noble or Amazon or whatever, or through through the press themselves, directly through the press. Well, that's it. We'll see you. We look at chapter 10 next. So take care and have a nice day. Bye-bye.